Child Protective Services, and they won't give them back to their loving families because they're making money.
This is a legal system that you're going into. And if you don't know the rules, you will be chewed up and spit out.
If I could say anything to a mother who just got their children detained, you're in a crisis. Yeah. Life feels like it's over. The most important thing is regaining custody of your children.
The child welfare system at its core is designed to protect children who need protection. Okay, and that's key, is who need protection.
So social workers, out of fear, will remove more children rather than only remove those children that truly need to be removed.
It's okay. It's okay.
This isn't someone stole your car. Someone broke into your house. This someone took your child, your flesh and blood.
It doesn't say on this order that it was not proven. It says untrue. I immediately knew that, okay, well, this ain't over.
Were there signs there? Were there no signs? Did I miss them? Did I catch them? At this point, I honestly don't know.
Families only get a finite amount of time to reunify.
I came into this field to help families, not destroy them.
The difference between the criminal system and the child welfare system is substantial. You have more rights as a criminal than you do as a parent.
All right, everyone, and we're live. Hello, and welcome to Fight CPS, the Civil Rights Struggle. I'm Amanda Cisco, our host, and I am also myself fighting an unjust CPS case. I have my guest with me here tonight, Jess. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. And before we get started, I would like to share with you guys a story that was sent to me by a client of mine who actually knew this person. And was dumbfounded when they found out what had happened. So an ex-foster child of a convicted pedophile files a $15 million claim against Arizona CPS. This child spent 12 years in the home of a man convicted of child sex crimes, and he filed a $15 million claim against two state agencies saying they failed to protect him from years of physical and sexual abuse. And guys, this gets kind of crazy. I'm going to read it word for word. And I'll post a link to it in the page once the show is finished. The claim, filed Wednesday by Tucson attorney Lynn Cadigan on behalf of, John Doe, names as defendant the Arizona Department of Child Safety and Economic Security, the directors of both agencies, and several employees. DCS, when it was known as Child Protective Services, was once an agency under DES control. The claim by John Doe, who recently turned 18, details more than a decade of abuse that highlights the state's failed child protection practices and policies, according to the document. A DCS spokesman says it's the agency's policy not to comment on pending litigation. John Doe went to live with foster parents David Frodsham and his wife at their Sierra Vista home in 2004 and remained in their care until 2016 when federal agents arrested Frodsham for operating a pornographic pedophile ring based in the home, said the claim, which is the precursor to a lawsuit. In December 2016, Frodsham was sentenced to 17 years in prison after pleading guilty to charges of child sexual abuse and pornography. John Doe was identified as one of his victims in the federal case. David Frodsham utilizes the state of Arizona and the foster care system to funnel innocent and vulnerable children into his home so he could run a pedophile ring, the claim said. Frodsham physically and sexually abused John Doe countless times and also acted as the young man's pimp, prostituting John Doe to other men in exchange for money. The claim said Frodsham often participated in the sexual encounters as well and helped enable a network of pedophiles in the Sierra Vista area who repeatedly abused John Doe. In addition to the abuse by Frodsham, John Doe also endured beatings and neglect by Frodsham's wife, the claim said. Frodsham's wife knew the sexual abuse was occurring, at times walking into the room as it was happening, yet took no steps to stop it, the claim said. The claim said Frodsham's wife routinely beat John Doe. She refused to buy clothes for John Doe or feed him, screaming at him every time he would complain or try to protect himself, according to the claim. The Frodshams forced John Doe to live outside the house most of the time, and when they left for work, they'd lock him out of the house. He was left with a bike to travel to a convenience store in case he needed to use the restroom. The neglect and abuse was documented by DCS, but still continued. The foster and other children were forced to eat hot sauce as punishment, handcuffed to the bed all night, locked outside the home, locked in closets, says John Doe, and the other boys were beaten with fists, brooms, belts, and other objects to the extent that medical care was frequently required. In an internal DCS document obtained by the Star, one caseworker noted in March 2007 that the Frodshams admitted to handcuffing John Doe one night after he'd gotten out of his room. The Frodshams did not hide the fact that they used the handcuffs and notified the agency immediately. The progress report said, adding that only corrective action would be taken against the Frodshams would be a review of policies and a stern warning that this is inappropriate behavior and against policy. The progress notes document other instances of abuse, with witnesses reporting seeing Frodshams' wife slapping her foster children in the face and forcing them to go to bed without dinner. DCS had access to more than 38 police reports from the Frodshams' house dated between 2002 and 2016. 38, guys, all prior to Frodshams' arrest for child abuse. The state should have reviewed these as part of their licensing of foster care and adoptive parent program, the claim says. John Doe complained to DCS over 16 times and nothing was done. DCS also documented at least 10 abuse and neglect complaints against the Frodshams between 2002 and 2015. Children in abusive homes rarely can report the abuse, as if they do, they are beaten again. The claim said this is exactly what happened to John Doe. DCS should have intervened because John Doe was completely vulnerable to the Frodshams and helpless against their abuse, according to the claim. In addition to the police reports, DCS documents, there was also information that showed that the Frodshams was an unsuitable foster and adoptive parent, the claim said. Frodsham briefly worked in the Department of Defense in Afghanistan, but was kicked out and relieved from duty due to sexual harassment and a military assessment that shows he had an unalterable personality disorder. If John Doe had been the biological child of the Frodshams, the state would have removed him from the house based on the allegations of neglect and abuse. Instead, the state left John Doe in the foster adoptive home, and the Frodshams received a monthly stipend from the state to abuse him. The claim provides a list of 10 ways in which DCS and its employees failed to prevent John Doe's abuse, which includes gross negligence and deliberate indifference by failing to investigate the claims of abuse and neglect in their home. There were numerous and deliberate negligent failings in the state in this case, despite constant DCS presence in reports and complaints. The Frodshams were allowed to traffic their children for sex and pornography, abuse and beat the children in horrific ways, and yet blame it all on the children, the claim said. And the story continues on for a little while longer. We're almost done, guys. John Doe has both physical and emotional scars from his years in abuse and will continue to suffer permanent and devastating emotional damage. In addition to the $15 million claim he is seeking, John Doe also wants to change the way DCS operates and send a message to the state to protect children in its care. The Department of Child Safety must be held accountable for the abuse this child has suffered, Cadigan told the Star. How could such horrific abuse occur on their watch? Well, guys, surprise, this happens all the time. The state entrusted vulnerable children into the Frodshams' care and paid him substantial taxpayer funds while he trafficked those foster children into his pedophile ring. This case is one of the worst cases of neglect and torture I've seen in my 35 years of experience, Cadigan says. The suffering this child has endured is unimaginable. And that's the end of the story. So starting from this point forward, we'll be sharing some type of egregious news update at the beginning of each show. All right. Now, Jess, let's get into your case. So tell me, before we start, though, tell me a little bit about yourself.
So I'm disabled. I have limited mobility for about 2 years. I was partially paralyzed. I have 2 wonderfully nerdy children who I love very, very much. We embrace the nerdyisms, you know.
Oh,
yeah.
Those people make the world go round.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
We make the world a more interesting place. I get it.
Exactly. Because because of the condition I have, it's swelling in the brain. I'm not as smart as I used to be. So it's fun to have my kids outsmart me, you know, and that's something that they've been doing since they were very young, which I'm very, very happy and very proud of.
Okay. So, tell me about how this case all started.
Well, I asked for help. I asked for help. Yeah, I asked for help. So my oldest child was becoming a little out of control, using the mental health system for gain, to get out of stuff, to get out of school, to get out of it's a thing that happens a lot here in Arizona, a lot. And I didn't realize we were in the tornado until it was too late. So I asked for help, and the only way all these places said, all these hospitals said I could get help was I had to ask DCS for help. And I stupidly went along with it because through Jewish Family Services, they have this awesome program, and it was working so well. It was working really, really well, but you had to have a voluntary open case with DCS. And that's kind of how all this started, unfortunately.
Okay.
Yeah. And by the time I realized, even with the program helping, the people that were involved got in trouble. So that was their way of discrediting me. That was their way of discrediting me. And it just sucked because all I was doing, was looking for help for my older child and also for my younger child, because I didn't want her to start imitating stuff she saw her older sibling doing. You know what I mean? Because the age difference is 5 years. That's a pretty big age difference for kids.
Right.
And so even though the Jewish Family Service people were helping, and it was beautiful and it was wonderful and it was finally working and things seemed to be going back to normal, a DCS, a caseworker and her supervisor yelled at me on the phone in front of the person from Jewish Family Services, yelled at me on the phone.
What did they say? What were they saying, yelling at you?
So I was sitting in the car with the nice lady from Jewish Family Services, and the caseworker called me back. So my child was up in Phoenix, and I had no way to go get her. I had no way to go get her because I can't drive. Like I said, I'm disabled. I can't drive to Phoenix. They transferred her from the CRC by medical something up to Phoenix to one of the hospitals because she had been playing games down here with the other hospitals, so no hospital in the city of Tucson would take her. So they transferred her up to Phoenix, but when it was time for her to be discharged, they told me the day of, oh, by the way, you need to be up here within an hour and a half. We live 3 hours away, an hour and a half to pick up your child. And I said, well, it's going to take longer than that for me to get up there to pick up the child. So as the day went on,
before they even told you, this was a setup.
Yeah, I know it was. I knew it was. But so actually the nice lady from Jewish Family Services was going to take off work and drive me up there, because at that point the discussion had turned kind of heated. Now, throughout this whole situation, the thing I never understood is why are they only threatening to take away one child but not the other? If I'm a bad parent, why are they not saying something about both children? Why is it always only focused on the one child?
That's a very good point.
I'm a bad mom to one, but not to the other. That just makes no sense to me whatsoever. So what they didn't realize was the nice lady from Jewish Family Services was sitting next to me in her car while this conversation was going on, because she was going to give me a ride up to Phoenix so I wouldn't get in more trouble knowing something at the last minute. Apparently that's my fault. So the lady and the supervisor were on the phone, and they started going, well, you do realize you're going to lose her now because you didn't pick her up like you were supposed to today. And this was about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And I started crying, and the lady sitting next to me grabs the phone, puts it on speaker, and records them going off on me. Seriously, records them going off on me, threatening me and yelling at me and cursing me. She finally had enough. So she steps out of the car. I'm bawling my eyes out. I don't hear the whole conversation with them.
So she started talking to them on your behalf.
She started yelling at them. She started yelling at them, screaming at them for being inappropriate, screaming at them for being unprofessional. And I finally was able the next day to go up and get my child. And then 2 days later, she was removed from my custody.
On what basis?
Neglect, because they said I didn't care enough to pick her up the day she was discharged, and I made her wait 24 hours.
But you didn't make her wait 24 hours, did you? You were up there within a few hours.
Yeah.
His
Yeah.
fault.
Well, that was the thing. So I knew the day before, I knew that day when they were yelling at me and stuff, that was the first day we found out, and I picked her up by the next morning. And so I didn't understand what was happening. I didn't understand what was going on. But apparently, from what the Jewish family service lady told me, because she witnessed it and she did speak up on my behalf because she couldn't take them treating me that way anymore, she apologized to me. She said she was sorry because that was not her intent to get my child taken away from me. Yeah. And fast forward through court, the COVID hit, and so everything kept getting postponed. It kept getting postponed. It kept getting postponed. When I finally got a lawyer and I gave her all the proof, she was giddy. She was so giddy. She was so giddy with happiness because she's like, "Who are you?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "Nobody saves their text messages from a year ago, from before COVID, all this." And I'm like, "My daddy was an auditor, so I have very OCD to keeping crap that normal people probably wouldn't keep."
Right.
And he was very, very excited. And then the very first day that my lawyer was questioning the caseworker, the very next day, all the charges, everything gets dismissed. Everything gets dropped, and they say, "Well, she's not been with you for a year. She's doing fine with her dad, so we're just going to drop everything and we're just going to walk away."
So they dismissed everything, but they didn't restore any of your rights?
Exactly. And I asked the judge about that too. And then
you continued it, not you. It wasn't your choice.
Right.
Am I correct?
Exactly. The only time I postponed it was when I had brain surgery, and that was a good postponement. I mean, I thought it was a good postponement. I had a shunt in my head and they had to remove it in 2019. So when they removed it, I was in the hospital for 3 weeks.
Hey, Jacqueline, how are you? So,
yeah.
How long has it been since you've seen your daughter? Did you get any during this time?
No. So that's the other thing. Her bio dad, she's not seen since she was 3. He lives out of state, and I have tried to maintain communication, maintain things like setting up times for us to talk. He claims she couldn't come down for her birthday because he couldn't afford it. I said, "Yeah, but if I'm paying for it, what does that have to do with anything?" But he had not seen her from the age of 3 to 16. He had not been a part of her life. He didn't want to be a part of her life. And all that's thoroughly documented as well, which is a lot of the problem she had behaviorally was, big part of it was that. So I have no rights. I have no leg to stand on. I have nothing to do with anything. And
now, did they terminate your parental rights, or did they just close the case without?
No, they just closed the case out. And then since she had been staying with her dad for 2 months at that point, they just figured, okay, she's fine where she is and we're done. But what upset me was that there was no ramifications because of COVID, such a long time had passed from when this started to when it was actually addressed. All my rights, even my lawyers, everything at that point was gone because it had been so long. But that's not on me. I had the proof since day one. That's how is that on me? I didn't postpone things. It just frustrates me. It just frustrates me. And then once again, now I'm terrified. Are they going to try to attempt to do the same thing that they did with one with the other? So my youngest daughter, she has really bad allergies and asthma. So as soon as we found out about COVID, we pulled her from public school and put her in online school. And DC asked to speak with us about her not being in school for a year. And I said, no, she's been in school for a year. We gave them the documentation, but they're still wanting to speak with her. And at that point, I said, shut up. I said, no, and that was it. Because I'm scared, for what they did last time. I'm terrified.
Yeah. Don't be scared. Don't give these people superpowers, even though they do abuse a lot of their power. Excuse me, I think I'm going to sneeze. Oh, my sinuses have been kind of off today. Sorry, guys.
Took away one kid without any rhyme or reason. How can they,
Well, that's actually a constitutional violation. It's unlawful search and seizure. But there is a silver lining to this. So, how old is your oldest child? That's the one who still lives with you, correct?
My youngest one is the one that still lives with me. She's 11. My oldest is 16. She stays with her dad.
They're both girls.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. Okay, so you still have your oldest, but your youngest lives with, or did I mix it up again?
You mix it up. I have my youngest, not my oldest. Yeah.
How old is your youngest?
She's 11.
Okay.
Almost 12.
Now, is she back in public school or is she still online?
She's still online. They won't give her the green light until her immune system is up so she can get the COVID vaccine.
They is in her doctors.
Yes, she has a team of 5
specialists. To speak to these people. You do not have to talk to, you do not have to speak to these people. And unfortunately, it takes somebody having to go through a case and learning the hard way who these people really are, to wise up and see, what their rights actually were and, what powers these people actually do and do not have. Well, the good news is, she's only a couple of years from 18. They can't force her to stay there. I haven't seen my children in a long time too. They kind of backdoor took them away indefinitely without rhyme or reason as well. And I raised them by myself since they were babies. I miss them very much. I have no contact.
Sorry, Kat.
You're okay. There's hope though. Your rights were not terminated. You didn't lose any rights.
Right.
You can petition the court for custody. You can go down to the courthouse and petition for custody and visitation of your oldest daughter.
Yeah. Well, and that was the visitation. Was she was supposed to come for the month of her birthday?
Was it and visitation?
Yeah, well, I was told yes, but when I went down there to file, because it was her birthday's in July, so I went down there in August because it had been 1 month, and then again in September they said there's nothing you can do because it hasn't been in order for a year, and he's only missed 1 visit. But that's
not true. They lied to you. Okay. Well,
but she's thriving where she is, and so it's kind of like.
Is she? She really is, though.
Yeah. So here's the thing: he did not have. Well, see,
not a bad.
He does not. There's not a mandate to report in Washington. There's a I didn't know that, but apparently here there's a mandate to report. So when she was lying and saying that she wanted to do this or do that or hurt herself or and I love my daughter, but we've since discussed it and anyway. So when she finally came clean and owning it, I wasn't able to get her out of that cycle. Her being where she is, her dad basically just put her in online school and didn't let her go anywhere for 6 months. And that broke the cycle, which I'm not happy about. I'm really not happy about. But the fact that she has a job now and she's in school now, and you see what I'm saying? Like she's thriving. She's not using the mental health system to get out of stuff. I'm happy, but I'm not happy because he's still keeping her from me in that sense. Won't let her visit. She's only allowed to call me once a week.
So, Jess, Jackie is asking a question. Can you read it, or would you like me to read it?
Yeah, could you? I'm sorry, I can't see.
Okay, no worries. Okay, so Jackie Perkins wants to know. I'm just tuning in right now. My question to Jess is, did they start a case with your youngest just because you had an open case for your daughter?
I don't know if there's a case for my youngest. I know they wanted to inquire about her going to school. And I told them no. I didn't know I was allowed to tell them no, but I told them no. And I haven't heard anything since. Grandma got a call as well. So I don't know. But that's what terrifies me. Do I talk to them or do I not talk to them?
I can't tell you what to do.
I know. But I'm saying that's my struggle. Yeah, exactly. That's my inner struggle. Is do I or don't I? And I don't know.
If I was in a position where if I didn't have a case, they were demanding to talk to me, I would tell them to fuck off. Yeah. Excuse my French, because we all have the right to not answer the door. Do not let them in your house without a warrant.
Exactly. And then am I poking the bear? But then I'm thinking, okay, well, I already went about it what I thought was the right way, and that poked the bear. So who knows what will aggravate said bear? And especially if it's the same caseworker. And that I think is what's pissing me off more than anything, is it is the exact same caseworker. And when we were told that there will be ramifications and that she will be demoted and blah, 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 why is she even allowed to be?
conflict of interest. If they do end up opening the case,
Thank you.
If they no, you're fine. If they happen to open up a case, you always have the option of complain. Just always, there's always somebody up the ladder. There's always somebody higher up than the little shithead you're dealing with when it comes to these evil. I don't even know. They're just disgusting. I can't even think of them as human. It's sick. They're supposed to be families, not ripping them apart.
And see, I was in the foster care system when I was very young, and I was very grateful for it. We got adopted by a wonderful family who adopted all 5 children. My mom was 50 when she adopted us. And we were from diapers to like 9 years old. But
So tell me, that's really interesting. Tell me a little bit about your experience in foster care.
Oh, it was horrific. It was bad. It was really, really bad. Not when we got placed in with our parents who ended up adopting us, but for the first, from when I was 3 to 6, it was really, really bad. Both my sister and I were, and this was back in the 90s, back in the 80s, late 80s. I was 85, so in the 80s, early 90s, it was really, really bad. The hospital visits. We were with one guy who liked to have my sister and I be his pets, and his charges never ever got filed on him. We saw him, I want to say 10 years ago. He had other kids in his home, and we had reported, we had talked, we had discussed. I would assume now, because of the age he was then, he's probably not alive anymore, but it was very bad. It was very, very bad. And honestly, if it wasn't for my sister, I don't think I would be as okay as I am right now. I really don't. We got adopted, like I said, by a wonderful, beautiful family. Spoiled rotten every summer. Got to go to Disneyland and Six Flags and SeaWorld. Yeah, most kids don't get that. Most kids don't get that. So I wouldn't trade it for the world, considering what happened later in life. But it was bad. It was really, really bad in the beginning. And honestly, if it wasn't for my sister reporting it to one of her friends, I don't know what would have continued to happen at that point. And then my brother and I, my youngest 2 brothers, there, like I said, 5 of us. The baby, my youngest brother, he had just been born, and then we went to go live with mom and dad. So it was good. I mean, it was good. And I wouldn't trade that. I wouldn't trade that part, because most kids know what it's like to be in the system, and to have that within itself is just beautiful. So beautiful,
That's really good. It's good to hear a nice story once in a while.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that you didn't let that painful experience, when you were younger, define you. And I'm glad that you guys were able to kind of endure it together.
Yeah. Like I said, if it wasn't for my older sister, I think it would have ended up much different. And then I found out I have a brother who has the exact same birth date as me. And we found him, my other siblings wanted to find our bio mom. Why, I don't know. But so it's just kind of fun to know that we have all these different, family members out there that we didn't even know about until recently. So it's kind of nice too. Yeah.
Was it like a 23andMe that you did?
Yeah. No, it was I guess ancestry thing or whatever. My older brother put everything in, and like I said, I've had no interest in any of that. But we did find a silver lining. We did find a brother out of that, and his birthday's the same day as mine, which is kind of cool too.
That is really cool. You're like twins. Are you guys aren't the same age though?
No, we're like, our age difference is pretty big. I think it's like 10 years. He's 10 years younger than I am.
Okay.
That's a big difference. Yeah.
So how do you find like a sibling on Ancestry? Because I had my genes, like my race tested. I was really
my brother did that. I'm too scared to do it. From the stories we were told when we were younger, my bio father was a rapist or something like that. My bio mom kept changing the story whenever I'd ask about my dad. So I'm scared to find out. I don't want to know. So my older brother actually put it in, and he was the one that found out. He was the one that found out our whole line that actually lives 2 cities away from us. So we were like that close distance our entire lives. We were not that far from each other. which is just strange. Yeah. So, but I'm too scared to put my DNA into that because I never knew if she was lying or not. Sorry, sidetracked. But yeah, I never knew. So, you know.
So I wonder if I already did mine. Could I do that too? Like, see, how many half siblings I might have. Thanks, Dad.
Yeah, you can. Yep. That's how they did the thing with the donor babies. Remember?
I don't remember.
That's how they. Yeah, that's how they find themselves. They put it into Ancestry, and that shows them how many siblings they have, how many half siblings they have, same dad, different mom type thing. And I think one of the counts was like an astronomical amount.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
I don't know how I feel about that. That's a lot of brothers and sisters to buy gifts for. I don't know about all that.
I know. I couldn't imagine. Okay. Well, tell me what you think is the biggest issue right now in regards to your civil rights that has happened on this case.
Well, the fact that I guess I really wanted to go to court. I really wanted to clear my name and prove that what I was saying was the truth, because my husband and I have been married 14 years. I've always told him I want to take in foster kids. I want to take in foster kids and adopt kids. I've always wanted to do that, but I can't because I have that stain on my record. If I decide to, it's going to be like pulling teeth. It's going to be like
a pedophile can take in foster kids and run a sex.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
That's why I was cringing so hard when you were reading that story, because that's always something I've wanted to do, and now I can't do that.
Never say never.
It's a low statistic
to have those records expunged.
Right. Yeah. That's what we're hoping to move forward with.
Yeah. Yeah, I would look into that. I would certainly look into that.
Just because I've always wanted to say, okay, I am not worried, I am not scared, because I can clear my name. And then the other thing was, my daughter was in some places, Devereaux and Ascending Roots and stuff like that. It was horrible. It was so horrible for her there, getting lice, and it was just bad. It was just bad. And it's like, I sent her there because of her behaviors, and that's what I was told to do. And you see what I'm saying? And it's just stuff like that where it's I feel like being led to those places, and then when I want to pull her, I get threatened. Well, if you pull her out of this program, she can get taken away from you. So I keep her in the program, and it just makes things worse. And then I end up looking bad at the end of that anyways. You see what I'm saying? So it just, that was the whole circle, the whole go around, the whole situation was always, whenever I would go against my mom gut, but when I went with my mom gut, this is what happened when I finally said enough was enough. So that's the biggest thing. Yeah. And people talking bad, and one of the workers told a lady at sorry.
Oh, take your time, please. And don't be sorry for anything. It's nothing to be sorry for.
She told the lady that, one of the caseworkers told the lady that was at my daughter's specialty office that I had one of my kids taken away, and she basically told her everything. And the nurse was well, is that true? Did that happen? Because we don't know if we want to see your daughter, if that's the type of mom you are. And I'm not joking, and this and that. And I looked at her and I said, how did you know that? Like, oh, well, one of I'm not going to say names, but we'll say JJ brings her daughter in here all the time, and she saw you in here once, so she told us what happened. Okay, but when did her story become fact, and why could my daughter be taken out of this study for the medicine? I filed a complaint to the higher up, so she got to stay in the study. But if you have a kid who's allergic to outside, you need all the studies and all the help you can get to figure out why.
Right.
Her almost losing that spot because this worker happened to see me out, that scares me. It really does. And why is she opening her mouth all over town about me anyways? Is that why she took the job, so she could have stuff to gossip about? So I'd say out of my rights, that's the biggest one, is that we almost lost this study for my daughter who needed it desperately, because this worker happened to see me at the clinical trial place. I didn't think that was legal. Mm.
What would you like to see happen on this case going forward?
Probably the supervisor and the worker to not be working there anymore, because if with all the proof we gave and everything we gave, how do they still have their jobs? That's the biggest question to this day that I still don't understand, is if we submitted all the proof to the higher ups, we took it to DCS higher ups, how is it that they still have their jobs when they promised ramifications and demotions and all that stuff, and yet they're still there?
Climbing the ladder. Even the higher up that said that, I would have gone above that person. I would have saved every conversation, recorded every conversation, saved every email, every message, everything.
We do. Yep, we have all the emails still. We have all the emails still, and that makes me think: do I keep fighting it, and when is enough enough?
Yes, I would fight. I can't tell you what to do.
I know.
You can fight it. You can keep fighting it, but remember to fight the right fight.
Right.
If that makes any sense.
No, it does.
What, is your goal to get your daughter back home with you again, or is your goal to clear your name, or both? Because mine very different fights with different things necessary to win those battles. Completely.
Right. I would say visitation more, since my daughter is thriving, and communication more with her, like when she sends me sad face messages because she wants to talk to me and her dad won't let her, stuff like that. And the other one would be to get my name cleared, because if we have all this proof and it's relevant, it's not about the monetary gain from all of this. It's more about getting my name cleared. So when I finally am ready, better, and able to take on foster kids, I'm able to do that without a black mark. You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't know if that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah. And we could not appeal. We could not do any of that. We couldn't sue for monetary. We couldn't do any of that because they said too much time had passed from when she had lived with me versus when this finally went in front of a judge. That's what we were told.
How much time is in how much time?
A year, more than 12 months. So I think it was like 13 or
different in your jurisdiction, but for my jurisdiction, statute of limitations is 2 years.
No.
Hold on, sorry. That sneeze has been in the back of my nose like all the entire show. Sorry, guys. Have you considered going down to the courthouse and, with this new information that you learned tonight, and petitioning on your own for more visitation? Because that is absolutely an option that you have.
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely, because I didn't know that was an option. You know what I mean? And even though my daughter's thriving, she's also, she needs her, in her words, she needs her mom. And she had a fight with her girlfriend. She needs her mom. She needs to talk that over with her mom. And so I think since nothing is being enforced, and since it is out of state, and but she's not been out of state for a whole year. I think now that I know what I'm allowed to do, yeah, you can bet your booty that I'm going to go down there and make sure. And I'm not going to let the lady in the front just dismiss me and say, no, you can't do that. Yeah.
So, with us living in the age of technology, and especially since your kids are older, I'm sure your daughter has access to social media. If she's watching this show right now, or if she does watch this show eventually, what would you want her to know?
That I love her, and that I would remind her that none of this is her fault. That that none of this is her fault, and her actions, the consequences were not as big as she's making them out to be. She blames herself all the time, and it's not her fault. It's not her fault, and I love her, and I fought hard for her to come back home, and I fought really hard for her to come back home, and to be happy. If she's thriving where she is, then focus on that, and we'll work on our relationship the best we can. That's what I would tell her. I would also remind her that she does have a little sister who still loves her, and she wants that communication as well. And that's through all of this, that's what hurts more than anything, is that she's not just being kept away from me, but she's being kept away from her sister. So, that's the biggest fear right there. But that we all love her, and that, if I could do anything different to make it so she would be here, I would in a heartbeat. I would in a heartbeat.
I'm so sorry that you're going through this. Just remember that you're not alone. You are now part of a network of hundreds and hundreds of families who we communicate with, who are also going through very similar cases. And, hopefully one day we'll look back at all this and ask ourselves, what the fuck were we thinking?
Yeah.
This whole ripping families apart. Government sanctioned kidnapping. It's disgusting. Now,
and especially when you ask for help, I guess that's the biggest thing through all of this, is that, I'm kicking myself, because if I wouldn't have asked for help, then I never had them involved before I asked for help.
Okay, Angela, go ahead and ask a question. We've got a viewer who would like to ask us a question. We'll see in a moment. Now, to all of our viewers who are also going through CPS cases and trying to navigate this bizarre, asinine court system, what advice would you give them?
Do not be afraid to ask. If you do not think your lawyer is doing what they are supposed to be doing, and they are stringing you along like they have a little cat toy, and even though they're supposed to be your lawyer, I'm not saying they're going to call you every single day, but do not be afraid to speak up and say, you know what? I have tried to get these documents to this lawyer, and she is still giving me the runaround. May I please have a new lawyer? Because you are allowed to ask that. You could get told no. Okay. And you have to be careful with that, but you are allowed to ask that. You are allowed to ask that. And if I would have had enough cojones to ask it in the beginning instead of in the middle, then this may have been put to rest before COVID got worse, and then we wouldn't be here nor there.
So have you had more than one lawyer?
Yes, that was the lot. Yeah. So we did. I had one, and I kept trying to get her the documents, over and over and over again. And then we finally were supposed to go to court, and she's like, oh, well, what, did you not send the documents? And I'm like, I pulled up the phone. I'm like, look, I have tried. And then when she didn't reschedule, even though she knew I was having brain surgery, because I let her know 3 weeks before my surgery, she didn't cancel court the day of my surgery. She didn't cancel court. She made it seem like it was me. So after that, I finally told the judge, this is the proof that I have. I need a new lawyer, because I told her I had surgery. I've tried to get her these documents. She is not any of it. And then my lawyer was ready to go within 2 weeks, but then everything was dropped at that point.
Did you hire a private attorney?
No.
So this was another court appointed.
Yeah, she did great. She was wonderful.
That's great.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And like I said, I didn't know there were red flags until after I came back because I was in Phoenix for surgery. When I came back down here, and Mom was like, you missed court. And I said, I was in Phoenix having break. And she's like, I know that. I'm saying that your lawyer didn't reschedule the court. I'm like, oh, well, that's shame on her. But the new lawyer had it ready to go within 2 weeks. She was all excited and pumped up. She's like, I never get these cases. Like, you are just such a little hermit crab for all these things. And you're a hoarder. And she was all happy about it. So she was ready to fight. And so was I. Sorry. And then it went nowhere. So yeah, there's that.
Brittany, that's really interesting. I feel like the judge may have overstepped his boundaries in that regard. I hope that you had a desirable outcome for your case, but feel free to post a comment and we can talk about it.
It's hard. And it's, I guess the other thing with the judge was I had asked not just for visitation, but I had also asked for therapy for my daughter and I for when she was living with her dad. And the judge said, absolutely not. No. Yeah, seriously, that was my biggest shock through all of it. Was I thought it would be good for us to have communication. You know what I mean? Have therapy, and the judge said no, absolutely not.
Jim, that's a very good question. I don't know what the rules and the laws are in your state, but sibling visitation could be something that you might want to look into. Perhaps call some lawyers in the area, ask for a consultation, give them the details of your case. Something important to remember is when you are getting ready to go to court, like it is a battle. It is an axe war of words. You know, and the story of your case is very important. That's what you're selling to the judge, is your story. I learned from Vincent Davis. He always said something along the lines of, you know, the story being the most important. But if you don't have the story, if you can't plead the story, plead the facts. If you can't plead the facts, plead the law. And if you can't plead the law, or no, if you don't have the story, focus on the facts. If you don't have the facts, argue the law. And if you argue the law, argue the equities of the law. But yeah, you know, it's not a bad idea to try to call some lawyers in the area and have a consultation. Some of them will do it for free. Someone will do it for a small fee, you know, and see if sibling visitation is something that you could also plead in the court. But I see, Angela. What they're going to want you to state is if there was a material change in circumstances. Meaning, like, if there's, like, you know, something has changed at this point that has created a situation where, you know, it would be in your and your daughter's best interests to be able to see each other. So I would speak with an attorney if you do have that consultation to see, you know, what you can plead as material change in circumstances. Because if you don't plead that, you know, they could possibly, you know, deny your motion.
Right.
Let's see. I got visits after TPR. That's termination of parental rights, guys, if you don't know. But ended, not by court order, said it. I got visits after TPR, but it ended, not by court order, said it should. Brittany, I'm not sure I understand that. Brittany, I would send me a message on the civil rights page through Facebook Messenger, and I'll look out for your name and we'll talk about your case. And maybe we can have you on as our next guest. Is there anything else that you would like to say, Jess?
I appreciate this format. I really do appreciate this format. Because just being able to talk about it makes me feel better already, just simply because, like I said, I was the one that asked for help, and that's always the guilt, you know, the little guilt monster back there that, you know, so talking it out, thank you.
Especially as a mother, not just as a mother, but as a woman in general. We blame ourselves for everything.
Yeah.
You know, like we're conditioned. It's her fault. It's my fault.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you ever watched The Handmaid's Tale?
No.
Oh my gosh, guys! If you haven't seen that show, it's really, really good. Anyway, I was gonna make a reference, but I'll save it. So before we wrap up the show, we've got about 10 minutes. I am going to go into a little bit of legal education. Okay. So lawsuits are like contests. Like all contests, lawsuits have rules. Winners know the rules and they know how to use them. Learn the rules and how to use them, or you lose. Okay. And this is very important in court cases. All right. So just remember, the rules rule. Not rulers, the rules. They rule. Okay. All right. And let's see. So a good way to imagine any lawsuit is the acronym CAT. Okay. So if you can remember CAT. So first, a lawsuit starts with a complaint. Okay, the next step is the answer, and then you get to the trial. All right, so every lawsuit starts with a complaint or petition. If the defendant can't avoid the complaint with a successful motion, he must file an answer. If the parties cannot resolve the case by settlement, summary judgment, or some other pretrial method, the issues are submitted to trial for the court to decide who has the greater weight of admissible evidence in favor of the allegations. And that's it. So also, can you count to 5? There are 5 principal processes in every lawsuit: the complaint, the flurry of motions, answer, and affirmative defenses. They're 2 separate things, but they always get filed together. Discovery, and then trial. So the complaint is a pleading filed by the plaintiff, the person bringing the lawsuit. The plaintiff alleges the facts in his complaint that he must prove to win. He alleges facts telling why the court has jurisdiction. He demands judgment. And if he wants a jury trial, he demands a trial by jury in his complaint. A flurry of motions may be filed by the defendant to avoid filing an answer to the plaintiff's complaint. If the defendant succeeds, the plaintiff's case disappears. There are only 3 of these simple motions. The answer is a pleading filed by the defendant if the flurry of motion fails. Answer should always be filed with the affirmative defenses. And then we'll go into that later in different shows. But what I want to start doing for you guys is I want to take time at the end of every show to kind of put together just little bits of very fundamental, very basic legal education. I'm not a licensed attorney yet. I am about to get my associates in my paralegal degree that I'm currently in school for, and then I'll be starting law school next fall. So, and I do plan on being a civil rights attorney in federal court, and I very much look forward to it. In my personal CPS case, my silver lining, I guess I could say, was finding my purpose in life. This is my passion. The law is actually a beautiful thing. The law is used in very evil ways. A lot of times it's abused, it's manipulated, it's not followed. But, in and of itself, in its very basic form, the fundamentals of the law are beautiful, and we need it. We need it to, stay organized as a society and to prevent chaos. And that's what we would have without it. So discovery is a tooth and nail fact finding battle engaged in both parties prior to the trial. The goal of discovery is to find admissible evidence that may tend to prove facts alleged by the parties' pleadings. And you can ask anything so long as it is reasonably calculated to lead to the discovery of admissible evidence. You can ask for basically anything. Just remember, it has to be reasonably calculated to lead to the discovery of admissible evidence, and that's always a great argument to make in court. All right. The trial determines the outcome if the issue has already been resolved by the resolution. Trial requires nothing more than presenting the admissible evidence. And a lot of that is obtained by pretrial discovery. The court then decides who has the most, i.e., who has the greater weight of admissible evidence. And the burden of proof is on the party who asserts a claim or demands redress. That is the person who has to prove the burden of proof. And you're in criminal court, you have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. And that takes a lot. But in civil court, you have to have a preponderance of evidence, just a little bit less. But, just remember that if you're being railroaded in court, remind the judge, judge, where is the evidence? This isn't a preponderance of evidence. And that's basically all I have for you guys tonight. We will go into more later as our shows continue. Just remember, every Thursday at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, that's 10 p.m. my time, we will be live, and we will start off with a new segment to keep you updated on all things egregious in the world of CPS. And then we will end, after our guest, the show with a little bit of legal education. And remember, everyone has the right to legal education. I am not giving any legal advice. I'm not a licensed attorney yet. But I am very passionate about making sure that all of my viewers, can leave each show with just little bits of knowledge that may be helpful in the future. And I thank you all for tuning in tonight, and you guys have a great night.